If you had asked me yesterday, I would have told you New Year's Eve was nothing special. Just fireworks, loud music, and people pretending the calendar could magically fix their whole lives. But that was before the world stopped around me. My name is Aiden. I'm 13, and ever since I was little, I felt like I noticed things other people don't. Not ghosts or monsters, just strange details. A clock ticking when there is no clock. Clouds shifting like something behind them is turning gears. Reflections that ripple even when nothing moves. Mom always says my imagination is bigger than my body. Dad, back when he still lived with us, used to say I see the in-between things. This year, Mom had to work late at the radio station, so I stayed home alone. She kissed my forehead before she left and told me not to open the door for anyone and to stay out of the attic. She always said that about the attic every day of the year, so I didn't think much of it. By 11:20 p.m. I was wrapped in a blanket on the couch, sketching in my notebook. I'd drawn a tree made of clock hands, gears drifting around it like leaves, and a sky streaked with dark blue and gold. I didn't remember deciding to draw any of it. My pencil just moved as if it knew something I didn't. Outside, the neighborhood was gearing up for midnight. Music, laughter, someone lighting fireworks too early, kids shouting across the street. I could feel the night vibrating with energy. Then everything froze. Not metaphorically, literally. The music outside cut silent in the middle of a beat. The fireworks stopped mid-explosion, hanging in the air like glowing flowers. The smoke from the grill next door held itself perfectly still. Cars didn't move. Shadows didn't stretch. Even the wind stopped blowing. I could hear my heartbeat, sharp and loud in the quiet. I stood up, blanket sliding off me, and waved my hand. My hand moved normally. Everything else stayed trapped. "Hello?" I whispered. My voice felt wrong in the stillness. That's when the ticking started. Slow, steady, everywhere at once. Tick, tick, tick. The sound crawled through the walls, vibrating through the floorboards, brushing the inside of my ribs. Then I heard something else. Above me, a thump, a heavy, deliberate one, like something shifting in the attic. Another thump, softer, like it didn't want to scare me. "No," I mumbled. "No, we're not doing this. Mom said not to go up there." But the ticking got louder. The attic thumped again. Something called to me, not with words but with attention. Like the attic was waiting. My feet moved even though my brain screamed at me to sit down and pretend none of this was happening. I climbed the stairs, heart pounding, and stopped in front of the attic door. It wasn't locked. I opened it, and warm air brushed past me even though the rest of the house was cold. The attic was dark except for one thing. A lantern sitting in the center of the floor. It glowed softly, golden and alive, like someone had filled it with swirling dust instead of a flame. I stepped closer. The lantern hummed, and the gold dust inside shifted as if it sensed me. The dust drifted upward, slowly forming a shape. A face. A boy's face. Older than me. Maybe 16 or 17. Brown skin, sharp features, and eyes the color of molten gold, bright enough to make my chest tighten. He pressed his palm to the inside of the lantern glass, and then the lantern whispered my name, barely audible but unmistakable. "Aiden?" My legs folded and I dropped onto the dusty floor. The boy leaned forward inside the lantern, his expression full of relief, like he'd been waiting forever. "You can hear me?" he breathed. Finally, I shook my head, terrified and confused. What are you?" His golden eyes softened, desperate and hopeful at the same time. "Midnight is breaking," he said, "and if you don't set me free, time won't start again." I stared at him, breath trembling. The lantern flickered, casting shadows that moved even though nothing else in the world did. The ticking grew faster. The air tightened. "Why me?" I whispered. The boy pressed his forehead against the glass, and for a moment he looked almost sad. "Because," he said, "you're the only one born between seconds." And before I could ask what that meant, the lantern light surged, and the floor beneath me trembled. The world was waiting for what I would do next. The attic tilted, not physically, more like my sense of balance shifted, like the world was leaning toward the lantern and dragging me with it. The boy inside stared at me like I was the only person left in existence. His golden eyes flickered in the swirling dust that I swallowed hard. Born between seconds? What does that even mean? A low tremor ran through the house, soft but deep, like a giant tapping its fingers under the floorboards. The lantern flickered with it. The boy winced. "There isn't time to explain everything," he said. "Time is thinning." He looked past me, toward the window, where the frozen fireworks outside still painted the night sky in unmoving bursts. "You feel it, don't you?" he whispered, the stillness pressing in. Yeah," I said, rubbing my arms. "It feels wrong." "It is wrong," he murmured. "Midnight is supposed to turn like a wheel. It resets the world every year. But it's stuck. And if it stays stuck..." His voice faded for a moment, like a bad radio signal, then sharpened again. "If it stays stuck, everything stops. Permanently." My stomach flipped. "You mean the world stays frozen forever?" "Everything alive needs time to move," he said. "Humans, seasons, dreams. Nothing can survive without it." The lantern's glass groaned like it was straining to hold him. The gold dust thrashed against the glass. The boy pressed both palms against it, struggling to stay focused on me. "You're the only one who can release me," he said. "Please, Aiden." "But why me?" I said again, louder. "What does being born between seconds mean?" For a moment, he didn't answer. His eyes softened in a way that made my breath catch. "It means you weren't born in a moment," he whispered. "You were born in the space between moments. A tiny sliver of time no one is supposed to exist in. You came into the world while time paused. Just for an instant." "That's not possible," I said, shaking my head. "It's rare," he said, "but not impossible. That's why the world feels different to you. Why clocks hum. Why shadows ripple. Why the hollow of time can reach you." "The hollow of what?" But the lantern suddenly pulsed with blinding light, cutting him off. The attic stretched and warped as if it were breathing. Dust floated upward instead of down. Boxes trembled and my hair lifted from my forehead like gravity was losing its grip. The boy slammed a fist against the glass. "Aiden, midnight is collapsing into itself. I need you to touch the lantern now." I stumbled back. "No, what if it traps me too?" "You won't be trapped," he said. "You'll be transported." "Transported where?" He hesitated for the first time. "To the hour path," he said softly. "Where time actually moves. Where the break started." This was insane. I should have run downstairs, locked myself in my room, and waited for Mom to come home and fix everything with normal mom logic and warm food and her tired smile. But outside the attic window, the frozen fireworks flickered. Just once, like a dying heartbeat, a wave of nausea washed through me. My legs felt weak, my fingers tingled. The boy pounded on the glass again. His panic wasn't angry, it was scared for me. "Aiden, listen, you're already being pulled in. If you don't go willingly, the break will tear you through the wrong way, and you won't survive it. Please, touch the lantern before it chooses for you." A sharp ringing filled the attic that I doubled over. Clutching my ears, the world twisted sideways, and something inside me, a tiny line of warmth, buried deep, pulled toward the lantern like a magnet. I took a shaky step forward. The boy watched every inch of me, golden eyes wide, hopeful, terrified, all at once. He pressed his palm to the glass, waiting for mine. "Aiden," he whispered, voice barely holding together. "I've been waiting years for someone like you. Don't let time die." My breath shook that I raised my hand and my fingertips touched the glass. The lantern exploded. Not outward, but inward, swallowing me whole. Time folded like paper, gravity vanished. Light spun around me in spirals of gold and midnight blue. The last thing I saw before the world dissolved was the boy reaching for me as the lantern shattered into dust. Then everything went dark, and when I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the attic anymore, that I wasn't anywhere. I recognized that I had arrived in the hour path. By New Year's Eve morning, the whole world outside my window felt like it was holding its breath. The frost on the glass looked thicker, the air quieter, even the wind moved differently, slow, almost expectant. I woke up knowing something was going to happen. Not guessed. Knew. For the first time since meeting Nuru, he wasn't sitting on my windowsill or perched on my desk lamp. The room felt heavier without him, like the gravity had tightened. I sat up, rubbed my face, and whispered into the empty air, "Okay, where are you?" My breath puffed out in the cold room like a small cloud. And that's when I felt something tug at me. Not physically, but like a thread woven through my chest. A nudge, a direction that I grabbed my coat, shoved my feet into my boots, and slipped outside into the brittle winter morning. The woods behind my neighborhood were quiet in that eerie, magical way, like the trees were leaning in to hear something I couldn't. Snow cracked under my steps as I followed the invisible pull, deeper than I'd ever gone without my parents. And then I heard it at a soft ringing, like a tiny bell being shaken gently, over and over. My heartbeat sped up. Nuru, no answer. That I pushed through a thicket, and the world suddenly opened into a clearing I didn't even know existed. The snow there glowed faintly, as if lit from beneath the ground, and standing right in the center, glowing brighter than I'd ever seen him, was Nuru. His whole form flickered, beautiful but unstable, like he was being pulled apart by wind I couldn't see. "Nuru!" I ran to him, but something pushed me back gently, like an invisible hand. "What's happening?" He looked at me, eyes wider and deeper than ever, and his voice wasn't soft this time. It echoed around the clearing, layered, ageless. "Time has thinned. Tonight, at the turning of the year, the gate between the old and the new opens. I must cross before it closes." My stomach dropped so fast it hurt. "You're leaving?" The glow around him pulsed once. "If I stay past midnight, I fade. Permanently." I felt the air leave my lungs. "But no, we just started. There's still so much." My voice cracked. "You helped me, but I didn't help you back. Let me do something. Anything. Tell me what you need." For a long moment, Nuru simply looked at me. The forest hummed around us like it was listening. "You already have," he said. "I was sent to remind you of your own light, not to take anything in return." "I don't want you to go," I whispered. Snow dusted my eyelashes. I didn't bother wiping it away. He floated closer, just enough that I could feel a faint warmth through the cold. "I do not want to go," he admitted, voice flickering. "But all things must pass through their season, even me." I felt something inside me twist, pain and acceptance tangled together. "When?" I asked. "At the first chime of midnight." The day passed in a blur. Couldn't eat, couldn't sit still, couldn't think of anything except how fast time was moving. Nuru stayed with me, perched lightly on my shoulder or drifting near the ceiling. He didn't glow as brightly anymore, like he was rationing what little time he had left. My parents thought I was just anxious about the new year. I didn't bother trying to explain. When night finally came, fireworks cracked faintly in the distance. People were celebrating, but all I could feel was the countdown to 11:58. Nuru hovered near my window, facing the forest. "It's time," he said softly. That I swallowed hard, pulled on my jacket, and followed him out one last time. The clearing was brighter than before. Beams of shimmering light stretching upward like columns, drifting snow glittering in their glow. Reality looked thinner, like I could poke a hole through it with my finger. Nuru drifted into the center. His body pulsed, each flash weaker than the last. "Come with me," he said gently. "To the edge." I walked up, my boots sinking into snow that felt too warm to be real. He turned, eyes kind and soft. "Close your eyes." I did. A warmth pressed lightly against my forehead, like a tiny hand or a tiny sun, and suddenly, I wasn't in the clearing anymore. I saw a vast expanse of light swirling into shapes. Mountains made of shimmering mist, rivers that flowed upward, stars drifting like fireflies. It was beautiful, and far away, on the horizon, I saw figures, small, glowing, graceful, moving like dancers in the sky. "Nuru, that's your home?" "Yes." I opened my eyes again. The clearing was fading around the edges, light swallowing the dark. Nuru's glow began to stretch upward, drifting from his body like strands of gold. This is not goodbye, he said. Every choice you make, every kindness you offer, every time you face what scares you, my light will be in it. My throat ached. Will I ever see you again? He paused. Not like this, he said, but one day in a moment you do not expect, when the world feels thin again, you may feel me. The air tightened. The lights brightened. Midnight was coming. I stepped forward, voice cracking. Nuru, thank you for everything. He flickered, small and warm. And thank you, Cairo, he whispered, for reminding me why light chooses to stay. 11:59:57 11:59:58 11:59:59. The world held its breath. 12:00. The clearing exploded in golden light. Snow spiraled upward like sparks, and Nuru, my friend, lifted into the air, dissolving into a stream of luminous threads that spiraled into the sky. Then, silence. The clearing dimmed. The light collapsed, and I was standing alone, snow settling softly around me. I don't know how long I stood there, maybe minutes, maybe hours, but when I finally turned to walk home, something warm pressed against my chest. When I looked down, a faint glow, tiny but steady, shimmered beneath my jacket pocket. I pulled it out. It was a small stone, smooth and warm, glowing from within with the exact shade of Nuru's light. Not bright, not fading, just alive. Inside it, something flickered, like a heartbeat. I held it close, and the forest wind whispered around me, soft and bright. And for the first time that night, I smiled, because Nuru hadn't disappeared. He had simply gone home. And he left a piece of himself with me. A reminder, a promise, a beginning. The first light of the new year. And maybe, just maybe, the first step into something bigger than I ever imagined.